Good evening and welcome to NTD News. I'm Stephanie Cox. Here are today's top stories. Inflation is at its worst since the early 1980s. The annual consumer price index rose almost 7% in November. An expert tells NTD monetary intervention by the Federal Reserve would only do more harm. The Supreme Court is allowing a strict Texas abortion law to stand, but it also ruled that abortion providers can sue over the law in question. New York's governor is telling people to mask up. The mask mandate for indoor venues is back, and it seems like people in New York City are happy about that. The prosecution rests its case in the Ghislaine Maxwell trial. The final accuser took the stand today and testified about her encounters with Maxwell and Epstein. The defense attempted to discredit her testimony. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange will be extradited to the U.S. Federal officials won an appeals in the UK High Court over his extradition. The Supreme Court has allowed one of the nation's strictest abortion laws to stand, but it'll allow abortion providers to sue Texas over the law in question. It's called the Heartbeat Act, which was signed into law in September. This protects unborn babies in many cases from being aborted if their heartbeat is detected. The Supreme Court decision gives abortion clinics the ability to sue the state in federal court. But this case has already been heard in a federal district court. That judge had temporarily paused the Heartbeat Act, but his decision was later overruled by a court of appeals, then sent to the U.S. Supreme Court. If this happens again, it'll once more end up in the Supreme Court's hands. And the prosecution rests its case in the sex trafficking trial of Ghislaine Maxwell. That's after the fourth accuser testified today. Maxwell will now have an opportunity to mount a defense in the trial, which is moving faster than initially expected. The 59-year-old British socialite is accused of recruiting and grooming teenage girls for the disgraced financier Jeffrey Epstein to abuse. NTD's Jason Perry has more from the courthouse in Manhattan.
The fourth and final accuser, Annie Farmer, took the stand today. She's the only accuser to use her real name. She said Epstein and Maxwell both touched her at Epstein's ranch in New Mexico when she was 16. Farmer, who is now 42, said she was undressed when Maxwell gave her an explicit massage in 1996. Farmer said that although Epstein was not in the same room, she felt that he could see her. The defense attorney grilled Farmer on her account of the events, asking her if it was a reconstructed memory. Maxwell's attorneys have argued that the accuser's memories have become corrupted in the decades since the alleged abuse occurred. The three other accusers said they were teenagers when Maxwell set them up to be sexually abused by Epstein. They also said that Maxwell encouraged them to give Epstein massages that would then escalate into sexual encounters. Jason Perry, NTD News, New York.
The trial was originally scheduled to last into January, but may end sooner than anticipated. Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to 8 counts of sex trafficking and other charges. Her lawyers have argued that she is being scapegoated for Epstein's alleged crimes. Epstein killed himself in a Manhattan jail cell back in 2019 while awaiting trial on sex crimes charges. And consumer prices in the U.S. have jumped to their highest levels in nearly 40 years. Today, the Bureau of Labor Statistics reported that the Consumer Price Index rose by 6.8% since November of last year.
The Consumer Price Index is at a level not seen since June 1982. The report also says gas prices soared more than 58%, the biggest hike since 1980. And groceries cost 6.4% more over the same period of time, the largest increase since 2008.
You can kind of understand why consumer confidence has been so weak, particularly in these last few reports, because the average American is feeling this because real wages aren't keeping up with either CPI the way it's reported, and particularly not the real cost of living once you look at it from what consumers spend money on every week.
Lance Roberts, chief investment strategist at Real Investment Advice, tells NTD that if we exclude fixed payments like mortgages and health care, then inflation is almost 10%. And he says he doesn't believe the Federal Reserve will be able to control inflation through monetary intervention.
if we go back in history and look at, the Federal Reserve's, the kind of monetary interventions, it's never worked out well, right? So in the initial stages, the Federal Reserve starts tightening rates, and in the initial phases of a quarter point, half point, you don't see much impact to the economy. However, you go back to 1980, every single time the Federal Reserve has started a rate hiking campaign, it's resulted in either a market crash, a recession, or some type of crisis.
Despite higher prices, U.S. consumer sentiment rose unexpectedly in early December among lower-income households. Readings of both current conditions and future expectations improved, but sentiment slipped further for the middle and upper thirds of the income spectrum.
The Senate passed a bill last night targeting the national debt. It follows debate and predictions that the U.S. could soon reach its debt limit. By a final vote of 59 to 35, the bill establishes a fast-track process that will allow Democrats to raise the federal debt limit on their own. It comes just ahead of the December 15th government default deadline. Next, the bill goes to President Biden's desk for his signature. With that, the Senate Democrats would be able to increase the debt limit on their own with a simple majority of 51 votes. 14 Senate Republicans broke a filibuster to advance the debt limit process yesterday, breaking weeks of partisan deadlock on the issue. And this week ended with American lawmakers unified in honoring a late senator. Bob Dole lay in state on Thursday. His funeral was held today. NTD's Miguel Moreno has that story.
Carried out of the U.S. Capitol, a casket containing the body of late Kansas Senator Bob Dole heads to the Washington National Cathedral. That was after he was honored at the World War II Memorial in the National Mall, the same memorial he raised funds to construct as a senator. Dole, a decorated World War II veteran, is honored for his service.
The memory and conscience of the man himself will always be here, right here, for as long as there is in America. And that is a good thing, because here we will always remember Bob Dole.
Afterwards, Democrats, Republicans, and of course Dole's family sat together unified in the cathedral. Robin Dole, daughter of the senator, gave her remarks.
I stand here with a heavy heart, and also as a grateful and proud daughter.
Near the end of her remarks, she revealed that Dole left a farewell letter. The senator's words were solemn, but contained a spark of his humor.
I also confess that I'm a bit curious to learn if I am correct in thinking that heaven will look a lot like Kansas. And to see, like others who have gone before me, if I will still be able to vote in Chicago.
President Joe Biden said Dole could be partisan, but Biden said that was fine.
We served together for 25 years. We disagreed, but we were never disagreeable with one another. Not one time that I can think of. I found Bob to be a man of principle, pragmatism, and enormous integrity.
Dole served in Congress for nearly 36 years. His body will eventually be buried in the Arlington National Cemetery after a visit to his hometown in Kansas. Miguel Moreno, NTD News.
New York State is bringing back the mask mandate for indoor venues. The governor says she is implementing the measure again because virus case rates and hospitalizations are on the rise.
I don't want to go back ever again to that place where people couldn't go to their jobs safely, couldn't congregate, kids couldn't go to schools. So to avoid that situation, I today am announcing that we are enacting a statewide indoor mask mandate unless a business has a vaccination mandate.
The governor says since Thanksgiving, the statewide 7-day average case rate increased by over 40%, and hospitalizations have increased by almost 30%. That's why the mandate is back. According to the governor, the number of people getting vaccinated is not increasing quickly enough to stop the spread of the virus. She says she shares New Yorkers' frustration that the pandemic is not over yet. We asked New Yorkers how they feel about the mandate being back.
I'm tired of this pandemic. I think it's not that hard to do. Just put a mask on inside.
I think it's a sensible precaution to take, given the Omicron spread. And wearing a mask inside, to me, is really not that big a deal.
I thought that it was already mandated. At least at my school, it's already mandated, so I'm used to it.
Local health departments are being asked to enforce the mandate. Violators will be fined up to $1,000. This measure is effective from December 13th until January 15th, 2022. After that, the state will reevaluate the mandate and could extend it.
Amtrak says it will likely have to reduce its service next year, due in part to vaccine mandates. That's according to the president of the passenger rail service. Stephen Gardner testified before a House committee Thursday. He said Amtrak will not have enough employees to run all of its trains before the vaccine mandate takes effect January 4th. He noted many engineers, conductors, and workers either retired or left the company during the pandemic, and that Amtrak has halted hiring due to the uncertainty surrounding pandemic restrictions. The company is expected to update its service routes soon. And last night, a smuggler's truck crashed in southern Mexico. Authorities have so far reported 55 dead and more than 100 injured, including at least 19 minors. NTD's Shen Yun tells us more. And a warning, the report contains images some viewers may find disturbing.
A truck jammed with as many as 200 migrants crashed Thursday on a curve outside the city of Tuxtla Gutierrez in southern Mexico. Authorities say the truck may have flipped over because its extreme weight, combined with speed in a nearby curve, threw the truck off balance. Most of those in the truck were Central American migrants who are going to be smuggled to the U.S. Migrants often risk their lives to reach the U.S., many fleeing poverty and violence in Central America. Rescue workers said they saw some bloodied and bruised migrants limping away after the crash, desperate to escape immigration agents. Mexican authorities are providing lodging and humanitarian visas to the survivors, but said those responsible for the accident will be held accountable. Record numbers of people have been arrested on the U.S.-Mexico border this year. That's after President Biden's pledge to pursue more humane immigration policies than the previous administration. Shen Yun, NTD News.
WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange moved a step closer to facing criminal charges in the United States after Washington won an appeal over his extradition. U.S. authorities accuse Assange of 18 counts relating to WikiLeaks' publication of thousands of leaked military and diplomatic documents. Previously, a UK court ruled that Assange should not be extradited because he was likely to kill himself if held under harsh U.S. prison conditions. The United States won an appeal today in the High Court after giving assurances about the detention conditions Assange would face in America. But further hurdles remain before he can be sent to the U.S. The legal battle is likely to go to the Supreme Court, the UK's final court of appeal. Assange's fiancée said his legal team would appeal the decision at the earliest possible moment. And up next, the rules for firearms are strict in New York City, but some teenagers still carry them and even bring them to school. And local fisheries on the West Coast prepare for a delayed crab season. The use of crab cages is now permitted in the Monterey Bay region. That and more here on NTD News. Some parents across the nation are worried about having kids in school because of the CCP virus. But in New York City, COVID isn't the only threat students face. NTD's Arian Pazdar has more.
New York City will soon have a new school chancellor. Today, he said that students are bringing weapons with them when they go to school. And according to the chancellor, they do that because they're afraid. David Banks is the incoming school chancellor. He says that students feel unsafe in their own communities and on their way to school, which is why they carry weapons. I went to a local high school to ask students if that's true. We didn't film their faces to protect their privacy.
I feel more unsafe going on the subway to here, rather than in the school.
Going home and stuff, yeah. Like, especially where I'm from, there's more, people on the street who carry weapons.
So what's their experience with weapons at school?
Some kids do bring weapons to school.
Did you bring weapons yourself?
I did not, but a lot of kids have.
just because, I don't know, it's more common in New York City.
They said it's mostly knives, but some kids even bring guns to school. Now, schools usually don't want students to bring weapons, so they install safety measures, as this high school teacher told me.
Metal detectors, we have that in here, yeah.
You have that already?
Yes, we do have. I think metal detector is a very effective way to prevent this type of weapons.
Chancellor Banks says students should feel safe in the communities they live in. The new chancellor is set to take office on January 1st, together with Mayor-elect Eric Adams. Both of them will officially take office at midnight on New Year's Eve. Ariane Pastar, NTD News, New York.
San Francisco has banned ghost guns. It will no longer be legal to buy or sell parts that are difficult to track. NTD's Eileen Ang has more.
The San Francisco Board of Supervisors officially banned ghost gun sales. They voted unanimously in September and signed it into law on Wednesday. Mayor London Breed, Supervisor Catherine Stefani, and other gun safety advocates attended the signing ceremony. In a Twitter post, Supervisor Stefani said, "Ghost guns wreak havoc on our community and are far too easy to obtain," and that the police saw an increase of over 2,700% in San Francisco over the last 4 years. She said this is the first in California. Ghost guns are assembled from firearm parts without serial numbers, making them hard to track. Parts can also be 3D printed. Kits can be found online. According to the district attorney's office, the San Francisco Police Department reported recovering just 6 ghost guns in 2016. They recovered 164 ghost guns in 2020. This August alone saw 150 ghost guns. The office also said California made up 65% of all ghost guns seized in the U.S. by the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives in 2020. Eileen Ang, NTD News, California.
The Dungeness crab season on the West Coast is now starting after a delay this year. Some fishing zones are now permitted to open with some new restrictions. We hear more from NTD's David Lamb.
These crab cages have been underutilized throughout this whole season, and now finally the Dungeness crab season is opening again in the Monterey and Santa Cruz region, and locals are excited because they've been waiting for a long time.
Well, it's a really special time of year. Everyone loves crab on their table, and it's been delayed, so we're all excited to hear that the season is going to be opening again pretty soon.
People weren't allowed to fish for crab recently because the nearby whales could get tangled in the caging equipment. The owner of H&H Fresh Fish at the Santa Cruz Harbor says there are more whales and they're staying in the waters longer because of the bait.
I mean, I've been on the bay my entire life for 50 years, and I've never seen as many whales as what's out there now. And nobody wants to hurt a whale, and so that makes it really tough.
The Santa Cruz native has been fishing since childhood. Haveman says fishermen take weeks to months off for crab fishing.
And it's definitely hard on all of our fishermen. That's the biggest problem. These guys they put a big part of their whole year into trying to make a living. You know, it's their wintertime money pretty much, and so.
Crab season usually begins in November, but it's been delayed. It's a big part of their revenue and culture in Santa Cruz.
Oh, it's very important. I mean, crab is one of the major fisheries left in our area, in addition to salmon and halibut. And the fishermen depend on crab for part of their annual income. It's a very important fishery in California in general.
So I think we paid here $14 a pound for it, and I think it's ranging anywhere from 12 to 14, which is actually pretty good. You know, here at the harbor, I'm sure it's a lot more expensive somewhere else, maybe in the stores, because they're probably trucking it in from further. But yeah, it's a decent price to pay. Yeah, I'll take it any day.
So there's actually like rock crabs and lots of other things people can fish here, and you can eat like all year round, which is pretty sustainable too. But the Dungeness crab is definitely super special. And
commercial crabbing in Monterey Bay Region Zone 4 is officially set to open on December 16th, almost a 1-month delay. The San Francisco area Zone 3 is still restricted from commercial crab fishing. Reporting in Santa Cruz, David Lamb, NTD News.
Transportation and supply chain problems are hurting farmers across the U.S. West Coast, a major global supplier of specialty crops like fruits and nuts that are popular at end-of-year celebrations. NTD's Andrew Thomas reports.
These shrink-wrapped boxes of fresh California walnuts are stacked up almost to the ceiling in Don Barton's California packing facility. They should be heading to Europe for holiday baking and to Asia for New Year's celebrations.
Walnuts are considered a culinary nut primarily, not as opposed to being a snacking nut. And so, yeah, the peak demand comes around the Thanksgiving, Christmas, New Year holidays.
Instead, about $10 million worth of nuts are stuck at his processing plant 70 miles south of Sacramento, thousands of miles from their destinations, as the global supply chain crisis squeezes ports. Ships that would normally pick up these walnuts are skipping the port of Oakland, or showing up at odd or unexpected times that make it difficult to get the product to the docks.
California is not the largest producer in the world. In the case of walnuts, we produce about 30% of the world's supply. So we have foreign competition in China, we have competition from Chile, we have competition from Eastern European countries.
Much of the shipping crunch is due to the pandemic. The demand for imports overwhelmed supply chains and prompted container shipping lines to focus on the most profitable routes between China and the port of Los Angeles, skipping others.
What we're seeing is that because of the congestion that's been happening at ports, in particular in Southern California, that has delayed vessels and they're off schedule. As a result, ocean carriers are deciding, rather than coming up the coast to Oakland, California, to skip us.
California's walnut industry exported 47% fewer nuts in the shell and 16% fewer shelled nuts during September and October of 2021 than it did in the previous year, according to a California Walnut Board report. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
One of the country's biggest car companies plans to build a new factory in Lansing, Michigan. This one, however, won't be for vehicles. This one's for electric car batteries. It would be the company's third EV battery plant in the U.S. And in case you're wondering, EV means electric vehicle. Documents GM posted on their website say the plant has a $2.5 billion price tag, and GM could employ as many as 1,700 workers to work there. Ford, another big three car company, picked Kentucky and Tennessee to build its battery factories, picked them over Michigan. So GM's investment is considered a big win for the Great Lakes state. The plant's expected to begin operating in 2025. And with higher prices also comes higher rent. The New York City rental market is making a major comeback, increasing at the fastest pace in the last decade. NTD's Phil Zoe has the details.
The median rent for Manhattan rose 17% year over year in November. And for the entire New York City, even higher at 23%.
The highest year-over-year increase we've tracked in at least a decade.
That's after rents dropped to record lows last year during the CCP virus pandemic, when the median Manhattan rent sunk to under $3,000. Now it's rebounded to around $3,500. But property appraiser Jonathan Miller says it's the most divided market he's ever seen in 35 years.
Lower wage earners saw much more pain economically than mid or upper tier salary types, where the upper half of the market is significantly outperforming the lower half.
He says some rents in the lower half of the market are still more than 10% below pre-pandemic levels. While rents are coming back, offices are still 65% empty. Miller warns that the city may not return to exactly the way it was before.
It's not going to revert back to pre-pandemic form. It's going to be something different, and that's what we're trying to figure out right now.
Phil Zoe, NTD News.
And Meta's virtual reality platform Horizon Worlds is now open to all adults in the U.S. and Canada. Before, you could only gain access if you were invited. NTD's Faye Corder has more.
Welcome to a place of limitless possibilities.
Horizon Worlds, Meta's new virtual reality social platform, is now open to anyone over 18 in the U.S. and Canada. In it, you can
forge new experiences
in a community of legless, floating avatars where you can explore, play, and create.
When you
go into a place like Horizon Worlds, you can go left, you can go right, you can go up, you can go down, you can go, play tag, you can go play a social game, a competitive game, or a cooperative game. You can go and just hang out by the grass in some exotic world. It really is up to you.
The CEO of brain training startup Virtue Leap says the game has no monetization system yet.
Woo! Wee! This is awesome.
But that potential future advertisements likely won't have the intrusive nature of pop-up ads.
Woo! Did I do it?
You can create seamless brand experiences. So, for example, you go into a virtual room in Horizon Worlds and a Coca-Cola can is there.
John Pavlik is a professor of media studies at Rutgers University. Pavlik says the platform is currently free, probably because Meta wants to collect data on people's experiences before turning to revenue.
I would guess that they want to create a lot of user-generated content and experience, get millions of people or even, hundreds of millions eventually on this platform. And then they may be able to generate revenue indirectly from that in some fashion.
Horizon Worlds is available on the Oculus Quest headset. Meta acquired the company for $2 billion in 2014.
So, bring your vision.
The Quest has failed to go beyond a niche audience, but Facebook is betting on virtual reality anyway. Faye Quarter, NTD News.
Coming up, a wave of unemployment may be coming in China. That's a warning from a renowned Chinese professor. And the layoffs could bring huge ramifications for the Chinese economy. And on International Human Rights Day, a survivor of the Chinese communist regime's brutal persecution talks about her family tragedy. That and more on NTD News.
Hello, I'm Mike Lindell. Cancel culture has not only affected myself and MyPillow, but millions of you out there. Before all this started, I had already written in my memoir, I dedicate this book to anyone that's looking for hope. Well, right now, we're all looking for hope. I believe that my story is going to bring inspiration and hope to everyone. By the time you're done reading my book, you will believe that with God, all things are possible. To thank you all for your support, I'm offering some of my best prices ever on MyPillow products, including this exclusive bundle. You get my book and these 5 MyPillows. They all have beautiful scenes and verses from the Bible, such as Isaiah 41:10. Do not fear, for I am with you. This 6-pack bundle is regularly $219. Now it's just $99.98 and free shipping with your promo code. Go to mypillow.com and use the promo code on your screen or call the 1-800 number below. Thank you and God bless.
Oh, hey, doesn't it feel like there's communists everywhere? In fact, the Chinese Communist Party has been subverting America from every angle. So whether it's compromising our politicians, controlling Hollywood, manipulating Wall Street, or infiltrating our schools, they have stopped at nothing to take down America. And I believe that in order for us to not become like China, we need citizens who know the truth. So go on over to getepic.com, stay informed with a subscription to the Epic Times, and you will get instant access to this infographic.
Someone has to find the way to build the Great Dome. Completely new, completely original.
A renowned Chinese professor says the country should brace for a massive wave of unemployment and the resulting impact on the economy. NTD's Tiffany Meyer has more.
An expert inside China is warning about a massive wave of unemployment in the country. The analysis by renowned Tsinghua University sociologist Professor Sun Liping recently went viral. Sun said in a video that a huge wave of unemployment is coming to China, and this wave mainly comes from 5 sources. The first is potential massive layoffs in the real estate sector. Real estate accounts for 28% of China's GDP and 26% of urban employment. The current wave of potential defaults among real estate firms may threaten some portion of that workforce. Real estate giant Evergrande alone directly employs about 200,000 people, while also providing work for nearly 4 million. It works with over 8,000 upstream and downstream cooperative enterprises. Evergrande's default may have an impact on the workforce of these companies as well. According to the Chinese professor, other factors causing the unemployment wave include foreign companies and investment leaving China. That says Chinese authorities pass a series of laws, such as the anti-sanctions law and the data security law, making it harder for foreign firms to operate in the country. Sun said other factors include shutdowns of small and medium-sized enterprises and layoffs from the private tutoring companies. The regime banned such private tutoring firms from making profits, raising capital, or going public. That has caused massive downsizing, and the 10 million teachers in this sector face the danger of losing their jobs anytime. Japanese outlet Nikkei Asia cited analysts estimating that a third of such jobs, or 3 million people, could be unemployed due to the crackdown. And lastly, risks in the cross-border e-commerce sector. Amazon this year kicked off an extensive cleanup campaign targeting consumer review abuses. It shut down 3,000 Chinese online stores for their fake reviews. This and more future campaigns could have an impact on Chinese store owners who rely on these platforms to make a living. But these 5 factors may not be all. Other sectors in China are also seeing large-scale downsizing. Due to the regime's crackdown on the entertainment industry, China's Nasdaq-listed online streaming giant iQIYI is cutting 40% to 50% of its workforce. That's according to Chinese media interviews with their employees. Other industry leaders are also reportedly downsizing. Tech companies Tencent, Kaishou, and TikTok's parent company ByteDance are laying off workers. The Hong Kong-listed short video giant Kuaishou has reportedly started to let go of workers who received low scores in performance reviews. The Chinese regime is taking new moves to crack down on the tech and cultural sectors. Chinese regulators on Thursday removed 106 apps from the country's app stores, saying the apps have collected excessive personal information. Current users can still use the apps, but new users aren't able to download them. The apps targeted include one of China's most popular social network platforms, Douban. Urban Chinese youngsters go there for book and movie reviews and other cultural discussions. News of the removal soon became one of the top trending topics on Chinese social media Weibo. Many were sad to see the app gone, and some say they don't understand the regime's move. Douban has already faced several hits from regulators this year. By November, the platform had been fined over $1 million for undisclosed reasons. Then last week, it was fined again for unlawful releases of information. The Chinese regime has ramped up regulation over online data. It passed a new law making it harder for foreign companies or investors to get information like supplies and financial statements. One expert told the Wall Street Journal that China has always been a big black box. But given the regime's recent actions, he says the black box becomes even blacker.
December 10th is International Human Rights Day. It's also a day to remember that actions speak louder than words. And before we move into this next report, please be aware that it does include some descriptions of torture and images of abuse, but it does end with a message of hope.
The UN's famous document, the Universal Declaration of Human Rights, holds the Guinness World Record for being the most translated document in the world. Yet for the victims of severe human rights abuse, words aren't enough.
I was beaten until I was dizzy, vomiting, and my ears were ringing. At the time, I had been married for only 8 months and I was pregnant.
In 2001, Li Huachi was arrested for printing human rights advocacy materials and flyers that exposed the CCP's abuse of millions of Chinese citizens who practiced the peaceful Falun Gong spiritual movement. Then Chinese dictator Jiang Zemin vowed to crush the group in 1999. But millions of Chinese citizens refused and have been subjected to a massive nationwide persecution campaign that continues to this day.
During this persecution, I lost 4 of my family members within less than 100 days. My husband, my mother, father, and brother all passed away.
Li Hua's daughter, Xinyang Xu, only spent time with her father twice before he died, but only when he was left in tragic condition, emaciated from torture and abuse under the regime's deadly policies.
The first time I saw my dad was when I was 7 years old. He wanted to hug me, but he was so skinny I didn't let him hold me because I was afraid he would be too exhausted. It was very scary.
While Li Hua and her family's experience may seem like an extreme example, under the CCP, these abuses in China are widespread and are just the tip of the iceberg. In June this year, the UN's human rights experts issued an alarm about forced live organ harvesting in China.
At the beginning, people didn't believe these crimes could really be happening, but now that the facts have been proven, people are finally taking action.
This Human Rights Day, Li Hua is signing a new pledge and telling her story to encourage Americans to also take the pledge.
In San Francisco, 15 human rights groups gathered outside of the NBC Sports office to call on the station not to air the 2022 Beijing Olympic Games.
For National Human Rights Day, numerous human rights groups gathered outside of the NBC Sports office in San Francisco to urge the station not to air the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic Games. The groups cited China's long track record of human rights abuses and genocide.
And so we ask NBC to stop trying to pretend that sports and the Olympics are divorced from basic moral principles.
We want total and complete boycott of the Beijing Olympic Games.
I believe that the media is also complicit in their silence about the human rights abuses that are going on at the hands of the Chinese government.
The groups thanked the countries that announced a diplomatic boycott of the 2022 Games. One speaker also expressed gratitude to the Women's Tennis Association for their response to the Chinese Communist Party.
We also congratulate and say thanks to Women's Tennis Association, WTA, for also announcing and suspending all tournaments and tour in China.
The groups also delivered a letter to NBC signed by 200 human rights groups calling on the station not to air the Beijing Olympic Games. After gathering in front of NBC, the group marched through the city to the Chinese consulate to continue their rally.
Coming up, Finland has agreed to buy 64 Lockheed Martin fighter jets in an $11 billion defense deal. It's the largest ever purchase by the Finnish military. And French President Emmanuel Macron is pitching a fully sovereign Europe in the areas of health, energy supply, and defense. This as France is about to take over the EU presidency in January. That and more after the break. Finland has agreed to buy 64 Lockheed Martin fighter jets to replace its aging fleet of combat planes in an $11 billion deal. The government says it's the Finnish military's largest ever purchase. The Nordic country picked the American company's F-35A fighters from among 5 contenders. Other choices included aircraft from European companies such as Airbus, Dassault, and Saab. The Finnish Air Force has a fleet of more than 60 F-18 Hornets acquired in the early 1990s. It started looking for a successor aircraft in 2014. The price tag for the deal with Lockheed Martin includes training and other equipment. European Union member Finland isn't part of NATO, but closely cooperates with the alliance. Switzerland, Denmark, and Norway also previously decided to buy the F-35. And French President Emmanuel Macron vowed on Thursday to help build a powerful Europe in the world as France prepares to take up the rotating presidency of the European Union in January. The tenure overlaps with the country's presidential election, which could put him in a tricky position. And today, Macron welcomed the new German chancellor, whom he needs to win over for his plans. This story comes from NTD's David English.
French President Emmanuel Macron on Friday welcomed Germany's new Chancellor Olaf Scholz for an inaugural working meeting at the Élysée Presidential Palace in Paris. The two most powerful EU leaders will begin the search for common ground. French officials say topping the agenda are tensions with Russia over Ukraine and France's 6-month European Union presidency, which starts on January the 1st. Macron on Thursday presented his priorities for the presidency.
We must move from a Europe of cooperation within our borders to a powerful Europe in the world, fully sovereign, free to make its choices and a master of its own destiny.
An expert on the European Union, Professor Marianne Gallard, said promoting sovereignty has long been a pillar of Macron's vision for Europe.
So undoubtedly, this will be his central theme, to build this strategic autonomy, whether in the field of health, in digital affairs and energy supply, and of course in the field of defense and security.
French officials say on that initiative, Macron will likely get the backing of the German Chancellor. The French president also said the EU needs to alter its deficit rules to encourage post-pandemic investment and foster growth. Scholz played down differences over this issue. France will hold presidential elections in April, in which Macron is expected to run for a second term. Gallard said the EU presidency might be a distraction during the campaign.
This could also interfere with France's presidency in a sense that it could be an issue to exploit in a negative way by his opponents who are anti-European or Eurosceptic, obviously in the far right, but also a part of the far left.
His possible contenders on the right have made migration a central issue. The French people are among the most EU-sceptical in Europe. So some observers say domestic concerns have influenced Macron's EU priorities. Macron said he will pursue a reform of the EU migration policy.
A sovereign Europe is first and foremost, and this is the main aspect for me, a Europe capable of controlling its borders.
He also said the bloc should better protect the less well-off and work towards a common EU minimum wage. David English, NTD News.
Britain's flagship naval aircraft carrier, the HMS Queen Elizabeth, returned to Portsmouth on Thursday after its maiden deployment. The vessel and its crew spent 7 months abroad, covering some 500,000 nautical miles during its mission to the Indo-Pacific region and back. NTD's David English has the story.
On a landmark 7-month mission, the aircraft carrier HMS Queen Elizabeth returned to Portsmouth on Thursday. The vessel led a task group including 8 supporting ships, a submarine, 5 air squadrons and more than 3,700 personnel.
Well, I think the highlights are for 7.5 months we've deployed the largest, most complex maritime strike group the Royal Navy's ever operated to the far side of the world and back. We've exercised and participated with over 40 different nations. So absolutely international by its design, this deployment. We've proven that. And I think we've demonstrated that the UK really does have a global perspective.
HMS Queen Elizabeth is the largest and most powerful vessel ever constructed for the British Navy.
I think just based upon the reception we got as we traveled all the way from the North Sea to the South China Sea and back from other nations coming out with interest, it just demonstrates the capability that this platform brings. It helps reassure our allies and partners while also deterring potential adversaries.
The Royal Navy described the operation as the most significant peacetime deployment in 25 years. Receiving a warm welcome as the vessel sailed into Portsmouth, sailors from the carrier will now be reunited with their families for Christmas. David English, NTD News.
Coming up, Norway's Magnus Carlsen wins his 5th world chess title, easily defeating his Russian opponent in Dubai. And the Netherlands National Museum plans to restretch Rembrandt's iconic painting, The Night Watch, to rid the work of deformations likely caused by climate conditions in the gallery. Stay tuned to find out more.
You worked hard for your money.
you invest in stability for your retirement and your family's future, to build and leave them with something greater. The next unprecedented financial crisis, political misstep, or unstable government can depreciate it all away. It was called the gold standard for a reason, the financial preservation of tomorrow. Diversify your assets against inflation, market volatility, and the unknown with real money. Hedge your wealth with the purest form of money, physical gold and silver. Because any currency printed on paper can be manipulated. What's backing up your IRA? Do what you need to do right now to be prepared with the Reagan Gold Group. Visit now, rggusakit.com, or call us at 866-912-1384. Receive up to $2,500 in free silver coins and a free safe with your new precious metals IRA. Call now.
The Airlines Passenger Experience Association released its list of world-class airlines of 2022. And Middle Eastern airlines make up a big chunk of the list. NTD's Evelyn Lee has more.
Planning your next trip abroad? The Airline Passenger Experience Association, or APEX, just named its top 7 world-class airlines for 2022. But what sets them apart?
What sets them apart is potentially the friendliness of their staff, the look and feel of their cabins, probably the service for food quality. I think when you travel a lot, as I have, millions of air miles, I think that one of the other things that really makes a difference for you is the staff.
On the list are Emirates, Japan Airlines, KLM, Qatar, Saudia, Singapore Airlines, and Turkish Airlines. APEX collected a year of passenger surveys and combined it with professional audits to choose the winners. And the award focuses heavily on customer experience. Canali says a big part of that is making a human connection with passengers.
And maybe they even give you a tip about where to go for a restaurant, for example, or they like a certain hotel or something like that. And so there's just those little connections.
Qatar Airways didn't just make the APEX list, but it also took the #1 spot on Skytrax ratings, a firm recognized to provide global benchmarks for airline standards. But to optimize the personal experience, Canali says she likes to look at the reviews to see what suits her purpose best. She says as a business traveler, for instance, on-time percentages are more important. Evelyn Lee, NTD News.
Norway's Magnus Carlsen claimed his 5th world chess crown in Dubai on Friday. He beat Russia's Jan Nepomniachtchi with a crushing 7.5 to 3.5 victory. Here's more.
The 31-year-old Carlsen benefited from a blunder by his Russian challenger to win his 4th game of the match with black pieces to take an unassailable lead in the best-of-14 contest.
Very happy, of course. Didn't expect it to go quite like this. I think it was just very good professional performance overall, I've no regrets at all. Just very satisfied.
His large margin of victory made it the most one-sided world championship since Jose Raul Capablanca of Cuba defeated German Emanuel Lasker 9-5 in 1921. It's an outcome that few would have bet on during the contest's initial stages.
I mean, after 5 games, there were 5 draws, and I'd had very, very few chances to play for anything more. Then everything kind of clicked, I think after that it all went my way.
The contest sprang to life in Game 6, won by Carlsen with the white pieces after 7 hours, 45 minutes, and 136 moves, the longest game in World Championship history. A dull 41-move draw followed before Carlsen won again with white as Nepomniachtchi, winner of the candidates tournament in April, blundered a pawn move in the middle game. Nepomniachtchi made another error in Game 9, letting his light square bishop get trapped after just 27 moves and leaving Carlsen on the brink of a 4th successful title defense. After another draw, Friday's Game 11 showed that Nepomniachtchi, the world number 5, had not recovered from his earlier defeats as he lost focus again.
You know, these things which happened here, they never happened to me in basically any events, okay. In my career, I lost quite some stupid games, yeah, but, you know, not as many in such a few time.
The Netherlands National Museum is planning to restretch Rembrandt's iconic painting, The Night Watch, to rid the work of deformations. The artwork will be removed from its wooden stretcher next month. NTD's Andrew Thomas has the details.
Conservators at the Rijksmuseum will attempt to reduce the deformations of The Night Watch by Rembrandt. The canvas will be removed from its wooden stretcher next month and placed on a new one to remove them.
We strongly feel that the wooden stretcher is contributing to the problem because a wooden stretcher actually reacts differently to the canvas. It will then be put onto a new strainer, a non-reactive material.
The oil on canvas painting depicts an Amsterdam civil militia and shows off Rembrandt's renowned use of light and composition to create a dynamic scene filled with characters.
In the macro XRF iron map here on the right, the feathers are clearly visible, while on the painting they are not visible. Well, it gives us the feeling we can peek over Rembrandt's shoulder while he was working on the Night Watch.
Once the painting has been restretched, the museum will decide on whether further restoration work is needed. The announcement came after intense scrutiny of the painting using high-tech imaging technology, including scans that revealed a preparatory sketch of the work underneath the paint.
Most important was the discovery of a type of arsenic-containing pigment that is not commonly associated with Rembrandt's palette. He used it in the impasto-rich area of the embroidery of Van Ruitenburg's buff coat and his sleeves.
The museum said the ripples were likely caused by climate conditions in the gallery, where it hung during the rebuilding work on its landmark home in Amsterdam. The painting has undergone many restorations over its lifetime. The museum said that much of the painting remains in excellent condition, while some areas need work. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
And that's all for today's news. Thanks for tuning in. I'm Stephanie Cox.
Thanks for watching us on YouTube. Did you know YouTube only keeps selective videos on its platform? So if you want to make sure you get the full picture, just subscribe to our newsletter. Go to newsletter.ntd.com and sign up. It's free.